The story is about a woman who is a crazy, ruthless tyrant, but after being reborn, all she wants is to be a good person. In her new life, not only does her doting brother follow her everywhere, but several handsome men are also drawn to her. The irony is, she was responsible for the deaths of nearly all of them in her past life. Back then, she used every dirty trick in the book to eliminate anyone who stood in her way, including her own family. But her violent rule didn't bring her peace. Instead, she was betrayed by the very people she had granted wealth and power. Even the man she loved most hated her to his core. In the end, she was branded a tyrant and executed. When she wakes up, she has been reborn and returned to her childhood. This time, she has one simple goal: to live a good, quiet life. As a result, her once distant brother has become a super clingy and adorable kid who follows her everywhere she goes. Dorothea, why are you so cute and smart? Dorothea has had the urge to shut this annoying kid up for good more times than she can count, but her brother Ray just keeps begging her to play with him. Thankfully, their nanny shows up and breaks the cycle. Seeing the princess studying so diligently, the nanny couldn't help but try to show off her own knowledge. She was immediately proven wrong by Dorothea. The nanny, in disbelief, praised Dorothea's intelligence. She wanted to tell the emperor all about it. Dorothea freezes and quickly stops her. No, don't. It's not necessary. Her father, the emperor, means nothing to her now. Her mother died giving birth to her, and her father blamed her for it. No matter how hard she tried in her past life, he never gave her a second glance. But for Ray, her father would grant his every wish, regardless of effort. Why couldn't he see me, the one who was trying so much harder? A seed of jealousy was planted in her heart back then and grew into a twisted tree. The Dorothea of the past thought the only way to soothe her pain was to take everything that was his. Greed and jealousy drove her mad, while lust for power and bloodshed destroyed her humanity. And so the tyrant Dorothea was born. But the reborn Dorothea has let go of all that. She no longer desires anything and just wants to live quietly in the shadows. This is what being good means to her now. However, her nanny saw right through it. How could she not know what was in the heart of the child she raised? The next day, the nanny takes Dorothea for a walk in the Alice Garden. Dorothea feels a pang of nostalgia, as she used to come here often in her past life. But she wonders why the nanny brought her here today. As they're strolling, they suddenly hear a voice. "Greetings to His Majesty the Emperor!" When she sees the Emperor frowning at her, she assumes she's already done something stupid to anger him. "Who are you? Don't you know this is the Alice Garden?" The nanny quickly explained. "This is your daughter, Her Highness, Princess Dorothea." Garland scowled. She has no manners. Hasn't anyone taught her proper etiquette? Has she even been educated? Dorothea felt a sting of pain, but couldn't be bothered to react. Seeing the situation worsening, the nanny jumped in again. "Her Highness is incredibly intelligent and very special. She's probably just a bit overwhelmed, as this is the first time she's met you, Your Majesty." The nanny shot Dorothea a look, urging her to do something. With a sigh and not wanting to get her nanny in trouble, Dorothea performed a perfect court curtsy for her father. The emperor asked for her name and then questioned, "And what is so special about you?" Dorothea told him that her nanny was just exaggerating and that she was no different from anyone else. The nanny, thinking Dorothea was just being modest, rushed to praise her. "Her Highness has already memorized the entire family genealogy." This piqued Garland's interest. He demanded she recite it for him. Dorothea, wanting to get away as quickly as possible, retorted, "Surely you already know the Millennial family lineage, Your Majesty. What good would it do for me to recite it?" Garland was suddenly intrigued. "So you'll only recite it if there's something in it for you?" "Of course not. I just don't want to waste your precious time. Tell me, what kind of reward would you want?" Dorothea was stunned. He had never asked her that before. In her previous life, hearing those words would have made her ecstatic. What a shame, she thought. In this life, I want nothing from him. But she couldn't say that, so she came up with a random idea that might be useful later. "Then please brew a bottle of fine red wine in my name." Garland's face hardened, and he turned to scold the nanny. "Is this how you've been teaching her? Are those the words of a child her age?" Dorothea immediately spoke up. "I learned it from a book called Portrait of Babel. There's a scene where a man and his lover drink aged red wine together. It sounded so special that it made me curious to taste it myself." Garland was shocked that Dorothea could understand such a complex book. He agreed to her request, but added, "However, you will recite the genealogy. If you make a single mistake, I'll punish this lying nanny." Dorothea looked at him, exasperated. It seemed her tyrant tendencies were probably inherited. After that day, the nanny kept hoping the emperor would visit Dorothea, but he never came again. Dorothea didn't care. To her, this was the best outcome, since seeing him only ever put her in a bad mood. The best way to avoid trouble was to do nothing at all. Just as she was feeling relieved, a familiar shout echoed in the distance. "Dorothea, where are you? Quick, nanny, tell him I'm not here." Dorothea scrambled to hide. Ray excitedly told the nanny he wanted to show Dorothea how he could control light spirits. The innocent crown prince had no idea that Dorothea didn't have this ability and was just trying to share his joy with the person he cared about. Although only those from the Millennial family could control light spirits, Dorothea was a half-royal with no spiritual power. Hearing him talk about it only fueled her old resentment. It was one of the reasons she had seized the throne in her past life and tried to usher in an age of pure humans with blood and violence. In the end, it all ended in failure. After one last glance at Ray, she turned and left. To avoid being seen, Dorothea took a longer path back. As she rounded a corner, she bumped into someone and was knocked to the ground. The impact left her dazed. The boy apologized profusely, but when Dorothea got a clear look at him, she froze. It was him, the man she had loved so deeply in her past life. Back then, he had nothing but hatred for her, proving the depths of his loathing with his own death. But she had been hopelessly in love with him, a feeling she couldn't forget even in this new life. And seeing her beloved again in this new life, she was moved to tears. Overwhelmed by a deep sense of longing, Dorothea blurted out, "I missed you so much, Theon." The boy's eyes widened in disbelief. "Does she know me?" But seeing her crying so hard, he rushed to comfort her. This scared the boy, who quickly offered her a handkerchief and asked if she was hurt. "Please don't cry, your eyes will get all swollen." Dorothea felt his gentle touch and was overcome with emotion. This isn't a dream. He's really here, and he's alive. Suddenly, she heard urgent shouts. "Dorothea!" When Ray saw Dorothea on the ground with tears in her eyes, he lost it. He lunged at Theon, grabbed him, and demanded to know if he was the one who made her cry. Theon, flustered, admitted that he had accidentally bumped into her. Hearing this, Ray's anger boiled over. Just as he was about to hit Theon, Dorothea quickly separated them, explaining that she just got something in her eye. Ray, who believed every word she said, immediately started fussing over her. Theon watched all of this, completely bewildered. Not only was this girl a princess, but she had also forgiven his clumsiness. But the strangest part was that they had never met before, so how could she have looked at him with such recognition? Just then, an embarrassed Ray awkwardly turned. He apologized to Theon. Theon just smiled and said it was no big deal. The prince's mood instantly changed, and he began introducing his new friend to Dorothea. Theon gave her a formal bow and then took her hand for a gentlemanly kiss. Dorothea suppressed her excitement, hopeful for their new beginning. If I forget the past and focus completely on this new life, maybe things will turn out differently. As she was lost in thought. Then a familiar yet unwelcome voice called out. It was the girl with pink hair and purple eyes, Julia, Theon's beloved from her past life. The two had been childhood sweethearts. In her previous life, Dorothea had cruelly torn them apart to have Theon for herself, but he never gave her the time of day. His gentleness was reserved only for Julia, consumed by jealousy. Dorothea had framed Julia for a crime she didn't commit and had her executed. Her selfishness and desire had destroyed their love. Right now, they were just a group of carefree friends. Seeing how close Theon and Julia were, Dorothea felt like an outsider all over again. I must look ridiculous right now, making all sorts of strange faces. How ugly. I should just stick to my plan of living a good life. She muttered an excuse about having something to do and turned to leave the awkward scene. Ray tried to get her to stay, but she was already gone. This left the others confused. Dorothea rushed back to her room. The crown prince was the one I killed. The love of my life died because of my jealousy. An innocent girl was executed. How could there ever be a place for me among them? Back in her room, Dorothea fell asleep early, clutching Theon's handkerchief and crying softly. In this life, she told herself, I won't be a burden to you. Dorothea was trying to lose herself in a sea of books, but Ray was buzzing around her like a pesky fly. She irritably told him to stop, but Ray said he was too nervous. Today was the day he would be officially named Crown Prince. Dorothea stared at him. Can a fool like this really rule a country? Ray looked at her helplessly. He wished he could give the position to his brilliant little sister. She was smart and never nervous. She would be an excellent ruler. Dorothea sighed, saying it was impossible since she couldn't summon spirits. Ray just smiled. You're so amazing, Doro. I'm sure you'll be able to summon them soon. Someone as incredible as you can do anything. Dorothea just looked at him. His clueless innocence was like a poison to her. Hopefully he'll mature over time and understand the heavy weight his casual words carry. The succession of a nation was no small matter. Changing the subject, Ray got playful again, saying he wouldn't have the confidence to go through with the ceremony without a hug from her. Dorothea wasn't about to indulge him and turned to leave, ignoring the prince's whining pleas. Dorothea arrived at the grand hall and looked around. The decorations for the ceremony were surprisingly simple. She couldn't help but remember her own coronation in her past life, which had been disgustingly lavish by comparison. An announcer's voice boomed, "His Majesty the Emperor has arrived!" Garland walked in, and the ceremony began. Dorothea gazed at the scepter in her father's hand. She noted the missing spirit stones. She thought indifferently. None of this has anything to do with me anymore, so why should I care? Just then, Ray entered from the main doors. As he passed Dorothea, he gave her a goofy grin. She subtly waved at him to stop looking like an idiot, but he just nodded back foolishly. She was speechless. Is this idiot really going to be the next emperor? If it were me, I'd never make such a rookie mistake. Watching Ray kneel to receive the crown, Dorothea quickly reminded herself that she had no right to even think about these things. I just hope the emperor of this era will be a wise and just ruler. After the ceremony, Garland led Ray through the crowd to receive congratulations. A few noblewomen approached Dorothea, remarking how much she looked like the late empress. Hearing this, Garland's face darkened. He shut them up before continuing to move through the crowd with Ray. Ray quietly tried to call Dorothea over a few times, but she ignored him. In her eyes, she would always be the odd one out. As she was zoning out, a voice startled her. "It must be boring standing here all by yourself." When Dorothea heard that familiar voice, she spun around in shock. The person she couldn't get out of her head was standing right in front of her. He handed Dorothea a glass of juice called pomegranate field. She accepted it, feeling flustered and almost unwilling to drink it. Theon must have been watching me for a while, she thought. Theon told her that Prince Ray often boasted about how smart she was and how she had even memorized the imperial textbooks. Dorothea humbly replied that she wasn't that amazing. Theon smiled again and said, "It sounds like we'll be seeing each other at Ebestes soon." Ebestes was the Empire's top academy, a place for training the best and brightest, and a social hub for noble children to build connections. But Dorothea's situation was different. She had been barred from attending under the pretext that she could not be more outstanding than the prince. In her past life, she had rebelled by sneaking out of the palace and throwing a rock through one of Ebestes' windows. Unfortunately, it hit the eldest son of Duke Valente. Garland had her locked up for it, and they became even more estranged. In this life, she had already let go of that obsession. To prevent a similar incident, Dorothea told Theon she wouldn't be going to Ebestes. Theon looked confused. "But you're so smart." "Why?" Just then, he saw Ray walk by and seemed to understand everything in an instant. Dorothea didn't want Theon to see her looking disappointed. She was about to change the subject when that other voice interrupted again. Julia walked over gracefully. "The Archduke is looking for you." Theon apologized and quickly excused himself. Dorothea looked at the mingling guests and felt completely alone. She decided to go back to her room. As she was about to ask her father for permission to leave, she was bumped by a man who turned suddenly. The pomegranate juice in her hand spilled all over her dress. Dorothea stared down at the stain, devastated. Theon had given her that juice, and she hadn't even taken a sip. The man who bumped her rushed to apologize. But Garland stopped him and said to Dorothea, "Apologize to him." Dorothea looked at her father in disbelief. Ray tried to step in and explain, but Garland wouldn't listen, insisting that Dorothea apologize immediately. With no other choice, Dorothea said, "I'm sorry, Duke Valente." The Duke was flustered. "It was my fault for offending you, Your Highness. Please raise your head." Garland coolly ordered a servant to take the princess away. Dorothea was eager to leave, but as she neared the exit, she saw a familiar figure staring at her. She turned and saw Theon, his face full of shock. He must have seen how pathetic I looked. A princess with no dignity. He saw me at my absolute worst. "Please don't look at me with pity," she thought desperately. "I don't want you to see me like this, please." Alone in her room, Dorothea was miserable. She could endure anything, but she couldn't stand the look in Theon's eyes. Even though she knew he would never love her, it was unbearable to see him with Julia. She told herself she had to forget him fast. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Ray was standing there looking worried. He said the party was boring and asked if she wanted to hang out with him. Dorothea couldn't hold back her anger anymore. She told him to go back where he belonged. But Ray insisted on staying to keep her company. Unable to take it anymore, Dorothea threw the door open and yelled, "This isn't a place you can just run away from because you're bored. You are the crown prince, so act like it. Stop thinking about playing all the time. I don't need you to worry about me." Ray was stunned into silence by her outburst. "Please," she added, her voice softer. "I just want to be alone." At that exact moment, Theon and Julia walked up, witnessing Dorothea's meltdown. "Your Highness, are you okay?" Dorothea froze. Ray explained he had brought them along because he wanted to hang out with her. Dorothea had no words. Mortified, she retreated back into her room and slammed the door. Her body went weak and she collapsed to the floor, tears streaming down her face. "I hate myself so much. Theon must despise me now. Why can't I just live a good life?" That's supposed to be my path to redemption. After that incident, Dorothea fell ill. She was bedridden for days with a high fever and aching body. But she didn't complain, enduring the pain because it felt like all she could do. Many days passed, and Ray hadn't come by, which gave Dorothea some much-needed peace. But just as she was thinking that, she saw Ray peeking around her doorway. He was nervously holding a gift. He told her he had grown the tomatoes himself and that he was sure she would love them. He added that he was also growing pumpkins and eggplants and would bring them to her as soon as they were ripe. Dorothea couldn't understand him at all. How can you waste your study time on this? There are people at the academy working their hardest to beat you. How are you going to be a good emperor acting like this? Ray scratched his head guiltily and changed the subject. Just try this tomato I picked from the garden. And of course, I'll study hard too and become the best big brother for you. It must be boring staying in the palace all the time. Do you want to go out? Dorothea suddenly realized she hadn't left the castle once since being reborn. She wasn't particularly interested, but after days of Ray's relentless begging and pleading, she finally caved. She agreed to go out, but refused to let him come with her. Ray could only look on with sad puppy dog eyes and agree. After the nanny dressed her up in an exquisite purple dress, Dorothea was ready. The nanny was so excited about the outing that she practically pushed Dorothea out the door, afraid she might change her mind. The market was bustling with activity. As they navigated the crowd, the nanny told Dorothea to hold her hand tightly so she wouldn't get lost. For Dorothea, who was mentally an adult, it was a bit awkward. She'd never held someone's hand while walking through a market before. The nanny led her to a high point overlooking the lively streets below. Seeing the city so full of peace and harmony, Dorothea felt a wave of emotion. In her past life, all she saw were dying cities and people who looked like zombies. She felt a pang of sadness. In this life, can I also enjoy this peace? Without realizing it, she squeezed the nanny's hand tighter. However, behind this peace, a dark shadow lurked. A man had been watching them for a while, a sinister smile on his face. But on her very first trip outside the palace, she was kidnapped. Tied up, Dorothea calmly assessed the situation. In this life, she had only focused on her studies and hadn't practiced swordsmanship. She never imagined something like this would happen. In the other room, her kidnappers were debating what to do with her. One suggested killing her after they got the ransom money, fueled by resentment upon seeing that her dress was worth more than their house. This all started 3 days ago when she and her nanny were at the market. The nanny knew Dorothea loved books and wanted to take a shortcut through an alley to a bookstore she knew would make her happy. But shortly after they entered the alley, a dark figure knocked the nanny out from behind. When Dorothea was about to scream, another person covered her mouth. Her world went dark. Dorothea thought grimly, I was once an empress and now I'm in this pathetic situation. If I'm going to die, I at least don't want it to be at the hands of scum like this. She was slightly relieved to hear that her nanny had been released. But then she wondered if her father would even bother to save her. After all, abandoning a useless pawn would be much easier than paying a ransom. Mister, who are you? Are you my new nanny? The man, seeing such a cute little girl, softened. Hello, little one. My name is Tutu and I'm not a nanny. Then you must be a friend of my father's. The man grinned. That's right, I'm your father's friend. You can call me Uncle Tutu from now on. Where are we, Uncle Tutu? He boasted that this was his home and started rambling about his glory days. Dorothea used the time to survey her surroundings. Escaping is going to be difficult. Seeing food on the table, Dorothea put on a pitiful face. Uncle Tutu, I'm so hungry. Tutu couldn't bear to see her starve and suggested to the other man, she hasn't eaten in a while, let's let her eat with us. The other man, however, was not moved. What do you think this is, an orphanage? He snapped. Tutu cautiously brought Dorothea to the table anyway. He suddenly pulled out a knife, held it to her throat and snarled, We're not your uncles, we brought you here to kill you. He then threw her into a corner. Tutu protested weakly. Danny, that's too harsh. She's going to die anyway, what's the difference? Or do you want to go first? Danny retorted. After tying Dorothea up again, Danny was about to return to the table. He saw a pair of gleaming eyes under it. Dorothea looked and saw it was a scorpion. This terrified Tutu, who jumped into Danny's arms, yelping, What if it stings us? As the two men panicked, Dorothea spoke up. Uncles, I can catch the scorpion for you. Can I have some milk and bread? Hearing that she could catch scorpions, they immediately agreed. A trembling Tutu untied her. Dorothea calmly used 2 sticks to pick up the scorpion. This terrified the men. They begged her to throw it out. After toying with them for a moment, she carried it up a ladder and outside. Only then did she realize she was in a basement. She was surrounded by an endless desert. I can't just run blindly, she thought. Who would ever find me out here? Is there any hope of getting away? Dorothea ate the food she had earned with her bravery, wishing more scorpions would show up. Tutu burst in. I heard a princess is missing. They're saying she was kidnapped. Danny glanced at Dorothea and quickly pulled Tutu into the other room. Dorothea guessed they had figured out her identity. To save their own skins, they would never let her leave alive. Besides, Garland probably wouldn't come for her anyway. After rummaging through a bag, Dorothea found a dagger. She crept to the door to listen. Although Danny was determined to kill her, Tutu was hesitant. But Danny argued that kidnapping a princess was a death sentence either way. He told Tutu to get the camels ready for their escape while he took care of things. Dorothea had no choice. She hid behind the door with the dagger. When Danny entered and started looking for her, she lunged, slashing at him. But she was too weak, and the attack barely fazed him. He grabbed her by the throat, but she didn't give up. She stabbed his arm with the dagger. Enraged, Danny grabbed her wrist and squeezed her neck tighter. Dorothea felt a wave of despair. If only I were stronger, this wouldn't be happening. Stay still, Danny roared. Struggling is useless. But Dorothea refused to die like this. She remembered her first life, how she fought and struggled but gained nothing in the end. This time, she would fight to the very last second. With a burst of fury, she kicked Danny hard. This caught him off guard and sent him sprawling. Dorothea picked up the dagger and advanced on him like a goddess of death. Danny stared at her as if he were seeing a monster. Dorothea saw the same fear of death in his eyes that she had seen so many times in her past life. Why did you have to mess with me? I just wanted to live a good life. I wish you had just left me alone to live and die in peace. Dorothea wandered aimlessly through the desert until night fell. Staring up at the starless black sky, she felt a wave of helpless fear. If I could control light spirits, would things be better? If this had happened to Ray, the Emperor would have found him by now, no matter how far he was. Exhausted, she could no longer stand and collapsed in the sand. After some time, she slowly opened her eyes and looked at the night sky, feeling resigned. Is this how I'm going to die? Just as she was about to give up, she saw a bright light in the distance, accompanied by the sound of approaching hooves. She forced herself to sit up. She waved her small hands frantically, but her body gave out and she collapsed again. Is that someone Garland sent to rescue me? How could I have such a ridiculous thought after being ignored so many times? Just before she lost consciousness, the Royal Night Search Party reached her. We finally found you, Your Highness! When she next awoke, she was in her own room. It seemed the rescuers in the desert had been real after all. As Dorothea tried to recall her last moments in the desert, she heard a voice. It was Garland, talking to her nanny just outside her door. Dorothea was stunned. In her memory, Garland had never shown this much concern for her. Is he only here because I almost died? Or is it because we share a bond of blood that can't be broken, and he does have a place for me in his heart after all? Just as she was starting to think Garland wasn't completely heartless, she heard him shout, "What a troublesome girl!" Announce to the public that it was all a rumor. Anyone who leaks the truth will be severely punished. Hearing those words, her brief fantasy shattered. Is this all punishment for my past life? Am I meant to atone with this one? If he hates me for reasons beyond my control, I don't think I can keep this up. One day, a doctor and her new nanny came to see her. The new face made Dorothea worry about her former nanny. Even though it wasn't her fault, she hoped she was okay. The doctor noted that Dorothea's recovery was slow and suggested she go to a quieter place to recuperate, like Theon. Dorothea's spirits lifted. Does this mean I can leave the palace again? I can get away from Garland and Ray, and from Theon and Julia at the academy. I can finally get out of their sight and build up my own strength. I never want to be in a position where I'm bullied and can't fight back again. I've decided I'm going to the sanatorium. The new nanny tried to talk her out of it, but Dorothea's mind was made up. The nanny was in disbelief, wondering how the princess had suddenly changed so much. Ray, beaming and holding a bouquet of flowers, appeared at her side. Are you feeling better today? What are you guys talking about? What sanatorium? Ray begged Dorothea not to leave him, but she didn't want to hear it. Even though he had visited her every day while she was sick, she wished he wouldn't. To her, Ray was too good, and she was just a bad person who didn't deserve his love. She told him again that what happened wasn't his fault, that he shouldn't blame himself or keep coming to see her. But Ray was heartbroken. If I hadn't insisted you go out with me, none of this would have happened, he said sadly. Dorothea replied, It's okay, it's all in the past. Ray tried again to convince her to stay and go to the academy with him. He said that even though it was hard, he was sure she could do it. Dorothea gripped the book in her hands tightly. Oh, Ray, you're such an idiot. Do you have any idea how hard I worked to get into the academy in my last life? And in the end, I was sent back with a single word from Garland. Can you even imagine how much that hurt? Firmly, she told him, I've made my decision. This conversation is over. I'd like to rest now, please leave. A few days later, it was time for Dorothea to leave for the sanatorium. Thanks to Garland's indifference, she was able to leave quickly. At least that idiot didn't show up to see me off, she thought with relief. Just then, a voice made her heart skip a beat. Your Highness, I heard you were leaving to recuperate. Dorothea was nervous and couldn't look Theon in the eye. Yes, I'm going to Serdian. Why are you here? I was worried you might get carriage sick, so I brought you something. I'm glad I caught you in time. Dorothea stared in disbelief at the candy in Theon's hand and slowly took it. Thank you for your concern. Theon looked sad. You'll be gone for a long time, won't you? It's a shame we won't see each other, but your health is the most important thing. Dorothea's heart pounded. In her past life, he had never treated her like this. Could it be that No. He's not meant for me. I can't think like that. With that, she turned and boarded the carriage. Inside, Dorothea told herself to calm down. She looked at the candy in her hand, lost in thought. Theon in this life is actually thinking of me? Really, for me? Having never traveled far in this new life, Dorothea smiled for the first time when she saw the sea. The memories of the palace were full of too much pain. Here, there were no traces of her past, which was a good thing. She looked at the candy in her hand. She felt hopeful for a new beginning. Just then, a loud voice called out, Your Highness! It was Clara, a maid from the detached palace. Please wait for me. What if you get lost? Oh, by the way, let me introduce you to your new guard knight, Stephen Greenwall. In her past life, he was the vice captain of the Radiant Knights, and he also died at her feet. But in this life, he should still be trying to solidify his position in the Knights. Why was he here, protecting an unimportant princess like her? Was it just because she was defenseless? After a friendly greeting with Stephen, she returned to her room and began to plan her next steps for survival. Just wanting to be good wasn't enough to make her happy. She needed a better standard. Just then, Clara brought her some snacks. Dorothea asked, Clara, how does one live a good life? A good life? By listening to your parents, of course. That wasn't the answer Dorothea was looking for. No, not like that. Clara looked over curiously. She saw the paper in Dorothea's hand. She couldn't help but laugh. Your Highness, you're so cute! A to-do list for living a good life? What's so funny? And stop calling me cute. Clara couldn't resist reading more. What about this one? Give father 100 messages? Dorothea pictured it and grimaced. Absolutely not. Then Clara suggested, how about just smiling? People who smile bring good fortune to others. Dorothea froze for a moment, then it hit her. Right, like Ray. He's always grinning and carefree. Clara's right. Good people are always smiling. She thought for a long time and managed to squeeze out a small smile. But because her facial muscles were so unused to it, her lips started twitching. Embarrassed, she pushed both Clara and Stephen out of her room. Dorothea had her plan. In her past life, she had caused too much death. To atone, she set a goal to save 1 million people. If I can do that, this life will have been a success. She went out to the balcony overlooking the sea to stretch and think. Suddenly, she felt the urge to take a walk on the beach. After telling Clara, she and Stephen headed down to the shore. As she was enjoying the cool sea breeze, she saw a boy up ahead. When she got a closer look, she realized it was Ethan. He was the man she had trusted most in her past life. He had lived the most beautiful life in the world, but he also possessed the most vicious and cruel heart. Just like her, he had lacked a parent's love. In her past life, he had done anything to please her, clearing all obstacles from her path and leading her to do many terrible things, pushing her deeper and deeper into the abyss. Because she had been so determined to be with Theon, he betrayed her. At his instigation, she was branded a tyrant and executed. He had even proclaimed, once you're executed, I'll be the next emperor. She had planned to stay far away from him in this life. But seeing this boy, who was so different from the cold-blooded man she knew, crying his heart out made her reconsider. Maybe in this life, I can use my kindness to change him, to give him a new path. Dorothea slowly approached Ethan. The moment their eyes met, he panicked, scrambling backward like someone whose deepest secret had been exposed. Dorothea didn't understand his reaction. What are you doing here? She asked. Before she could finish, he turned and fled as if he hadn't heard her. She felt like she had been too forward and should have just left him alone. She recalled his painful childhood, ignored by his parents and despised by his family for being an illegitimate son. His very existence was hidden. Perhaps that's why he, like her, had developed such a cruel and ruthless personality. Time passed. Hearing that a princess was staying nearby, the local noblewomen couldn't wait to visit. Dorothea didn't want to get involved, but couldn't refuse. She planned to just say hello and be done with it. But the ladies absolutely adored her. She's so adorable, they gushed, treating her like a precious doll and showering her with affection. Even when she was eating, they praised her elegant posture. They felt sorry that she couldn't go out and play while she was recuperating. Dorothea had never experienced this kind of attention and was completely overwhelmed. She shot a desperate look at Clara and Stephen. But they just stood by, thinking this was the kind of love a young girl deserved. As she was struggling, a voice said, "Your Highness, you must come visit my home sometime." It was the Duchess Valente. Seeing her, Dorothea immediately thought of one person. It was Ethan, the Duke's illegitimate son. She was still concerned about him and decided to see him again. If possible, she wanted him to live a good life with her, so he wouldn't cause a rebellion in the future. "I'll add this to my list." Dorothea immediately replied, "If the Duchess is inviting me, I would be delighted to accept." The next day, she set off for the ducal estate. She wondered if the noblewomen genuinely liked her, or if they just liked her title and were trying to build connections. Clara assured her that everyone's affection was sincere, from their eyes to their words of praise. Dorothea looked at her reflection. Do that many people really like me? Then why was I so disliked in my past life? I never forced Theon to do anything because I didn't want him to hate me, but I was still nothing to him. I'm so weak when it comes to love. It seems like love is just not for me. I don't even know how to love. How can I possibly live a good life? The Duke and Duchess gave her a warm welcome and a lavish meal. But Dorothea's mind was elsewhere. She scanned the room, looking for Ethan. "I heard you have another son. Why isn't he here?" she asked. The couple lit up, thrilled that the princess knew of their son, Jonathan, and assumed the crown prince must have told her. Not wanting to waste time, Dorothea clarified, "No, his name is Ethan Valente." The Duke and Duchess froze, their faces a mask of disbelief. Dorothea stated firmly, "I would like to see him now." The Duke and Duchess exchanged a look of disbelief. Maybe we can use this to get closer to the royal family, they thought, a sly joy creeping into their hearts. "So, Her Highness has taken a liking to our Ethan," the Duke said, clearly misinterpreting her intentions. But it didn't matter what they thought, as long as she got to see him. Still, she corrected them. "I just think we could be friends." The Duke was overjoyed and arranged for them to meet after the meal. After eating, a servant led Dorothea to a courtyard where a boy was sitting lost in thought. As the servant called his name, Ethan turned around and smiled. He greeted her with perfect etiquette. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Your Highness. I am truly honored." Ethan's handsome and graceful demeanor was captivating, even making the nearby servants' hearts flutter. Dorothea wasn't surprised. In her past life, countless people had fallen for his charm. She looked at him, pretending they had never met before. She decided not to bring up their previous encounter on the beach. They exchanged polite but empty words, both with their minds elsewhere. Dorothea couldn't tell if he was being sincere or just putting on an act. She stared at him, trying to read his thoughts. "Is there something on my face?" Ethan asked, looking puzzled. "Yes," Dorothea replied. "It's covered in handsomeness." The air turned awkward. Ethan's face turned bright red, and the once eloquent boy became a stuttering mess. Dorothea watched in disbelief. "Ethan is blushing? The old Ethan would have just agreed with me. It seems the young him isn't as calculating as I thought." Suddenly, Ethan covered his face and said shyly, "And you, Your Highness, are the most beautiful person I have ever seen." Dorothea realized he was still the same snake, using flattery to win people over. But then, to her surprise, he started opening up, telling her that he had no friends because his family wouldn't even let him leave the house. He was truly happy that she had come to see him. But Dorothea was still hesitant, wondering if she should continue talking to him. Ethan was like a ticking time bomb. In the end, she decided to try and pull him toward a better path. "You should come visit the detached palace sometime," she said. Ethan's face lit up. "Can I really?" Dorothea gave a lazy confirmation. Ethan slowly rose, walked over to her, and gently kissed her on the cheek. Dorothea froze, completely stunned. Did Ethan just kiss me? But Ethan just thanked her happily. She wondered if she would regret adding him to her list. For now, she decided to keep him there. Back at the detached palace, Clara was begging Stephen for a favor. Given his serious expression, she was worried he would refuse. But to her surprise, he nodded. Clara was immensely relieved. It turned out Dorothea's birthday was coming up, and Clara was struggling to think of a gift. Since Dorothea's only visible hobby was reading, Clara had enlisted Stephen's help to plan a surprise. Stephen was reluctant, but he couldn't say no to Clara. When Dorothea returned from the Duke's estate, Clara set off fireworks and wished her a happy birthday. This was followed by a huge seafood feast. It was delicious, but there was way too much food. "The weather is so nice today, perfect for a walk," Clara said. Dorothea noticed Stephen was nowhere to be seen, and wondered what the two were plotting. But seeing Clara's hopeful expression, she agreed to go out. Soon they were strolling along the beach, where they saw many seashells. "Look, Your Highness! These shells are so beautiful!" Clara exclaimed. Dorothea knew something was up, but played along, picking up shells. She figured there was a surprise hidden among them. But after searching for a while, she found nothing. When she turned to ask Clara, she was gone. As she looked around, she saw a figure approaching in the distance. It was a person in a lion costume. Dorothea froze. Is, is that Stephen? Before she could ask, the lion let out a roar. Dorothea was mortified. She couldn't believe this was a side of Stephen that existed. Then she remembered the cover of a book she often used, Leo the Lionheart. Clara must have thought she loved that book, but she only used it as a cover for more difficult texts. Oh God, I wish he would just take it off, she thought. But it was a kind gesture, and she didn't want to ruin it. She forced a stiff smile. Are you Leo the Lionheart? The lion didn't answer but roared again. Dorothea couldn't take much more of this. To ease the awkwardness, she offered the shells in her hand to the lion and asked, as if curious, Are you here because it's my birthday? The lion didn't speak but knelt on one knee. Happy birthday to our Princess Dorothea. Dorothea blushed and thanked the lion. Then the lion reached out and swept her into his arms. She never thought she'd be held by Stephen, even though he had been loyal to Ray in her past life, and she had killed him. Learning about his background in this life made her see they weren't so different. Both were tragic figures unable to control their own fates. Just as she and the lion were having a nice chat, it started to rain. The lion shielded her from the rain as he carried her back to the palace. They met a frantic Clara rushing toward them with an umbrella. Without another word, the lion waved and disappeared. Back in her room, Dorothea saw a letter from Ray. She tossed it aside, uninterested in what her annoying brother had to say. Meanwhile, Stephen, now changed out of the costume, was whispering with Clara, both proud of their successful plan. Even Stephen had a slight smile on his face. Dorothea decided not to blow their cover, but she couldn't resist a little fun. Stephen, I met Leo the Lionheart today, but I still haven't gotten a birthday present from you. You didn't forget, did you? Stephen was completely caught off guard and looked to Clara for help. He quickly knelt and apologized. I'll be sure to get you one next time. But Dorothea wasn't letting him off that easy. I want to learn swordsmanship from you, she said. I don't want to be captured by bad men again. I don't want to be helpless if I encounter danger, so please teach me, Stephen. Looking at the cute and determined princess, Stephen took her hand and gave a slow, gratified nod. Ever since Stephen started teaching her, Dorothea trained relentlessly. Though her body grew stronger and more agile every day, she was frustrated that Stephen wouldn't let her use a real sword. Is he afraid I'll surpass him too quickly? She wondered. She sensed someone sneaking up behind her. Assuming it was Stephen testing her, she spun around and swung her practice sword, only to see it was Ethan. She stopped just in time to avoid hitting him. It's me, Your Highness, Ethan said, holding up his hands in surrender. Ethan? What are you doing here? I thought you were Stephen, Dorothea said, surprised. Ethan ignored her question and started wiping the sweat from her brow with a handkerchief. Dorothea instinctively took a step back, feeling something was off. To make things more awkward, a group of maids was watching from a distance, swooning. Master Ethan is so cute! They look like two angels! Dorothea looked at the starstruck maids, feeling helpless. Suddenly, Ethan grabbed her hand. This time, it's your turn to show me around your palace. Dorothea was too surprised to react. Seeing her hesitation, Ethan quickly let go. I'll wait for you in the reception room then. A little while later, Dorothea brought Ethan to her room. He looked around in disbelief. For a princess, her bedroom was incredibly plain. He figured it was because of her bad relationship with the Emperor. Seeing Dorothea's downcast expression, Ethan tried to cheer her up by presenting her with a gift. It was an expensive-looking necklace. Dorothea was immediately suspicious. Ethan was confused. Why wouldn't she like such a precious gift? Dorothea explained. We've only just met. I can't accept something so valuable from you. You should give it to someone you're truly close to and who is important to you. Ethan thought for a moment. I suppose I was too impulsive. It's just that you're the first person who's ever wanted to talk to me. To me, you are the closest and most important person. I'm sorry if this made you uncomfortable. Dorothea sighed, feeling like a second ray was starting to appear. Just then, Ethan noticed the royal letter on her desk and asked about it. As far as Dorothea was concerned, Ray's letters weren't important. They were just him complaining about how hard his studies at Ebasti were. She didn't want to explain and tried to lead Ethan out. But then he spotted the handkerchief on her nightstand. He could tell it wasn't from the royal family and was about to ask. Dorothea snatched it up, stumbling over her words as she tried to explain where it came from. Seeing her odd reaction, Ethan guessed what was going on. I'll give you a handkerchief next time, then, he offered sincerely. Eager to end the awkward conversation, Dorothea quickly agreed. Ethan went back to his cheerful self and continued to look around her room. But as he left, he shot a cold glance at the handkerchief hidden in the cabinet. One day, Dorothea was eating. She noticed the servants whispering amongst themselves. Just then, Clara came in and urged her to return to the palace, explaining that a contagious disease was spreading in the area. The common people couldn't afford the expensive treatment, and many had died. Dorothea didn't want to leave, but then she had an idea. A plague? This is the perfect opportunity to work on my good deeds list. She announced that if there was a cure, she would cover the costs for everyone. I may not be a very good princess, but I am very rich. This is something I can do. Thanks to the princess's name and financial backing, the village recovered within half a month. Clara was overcome with emotion, thanking Dorothea profusely and praising her kindness, saying how proud she and the other servants were. But Dorothea was confused. All I did was spend some money. Is that what being good is? Feeling awkward, she was about to leave when a servant called out. Your Highness, a villager just left this and ran off, saying it was to thank you. Ethan added, It seems everyone is very grateful for your generosity and wants to repay you. Dorothea looked at the sprouted potato in her hand, still skeptical. I just did a small, insignificant thing. Are people really grateful? Feeling like she had finally done something meaningful, she announced cheerfully, Clara, plant the sprouted potatoes and use the rest for dinner tonight. Ethan, you should stay and eat with us too. Ethan asked in disbelief. Really? It would be my honor. For 3 years, she had been trying to defeat Stephen, a man she had easily bested in her past life, but now he just toyed with her during their spars. She was frustrated that her body couldn't keep up with her mind as she looked for an opening. Just then, she heard Clara shouting for them to come back. Seeing Stephen get distracted for a split second, Dorothea saw her chance and lunged. But her surefire attack was stopped when Stephen, infuriatingly, caught the wooden blade with his bare hand. Dorothea was furious. Even if I'm weak, you don't have to look down on me like that. Clara has been calling us for a while. Let's go back, Stephen said calmly. Dorothea grumbled as she followed him, but he remained silent. For 3 years, he wrote to her whenever he had a spare moment, but every letter was met with silence. Ray couldn't understand why his sister wouldn't reply to a single letter. Just then, a hand clapped him on the shoulder. Don't worry, I'm sure the princess has read your letters. She's probably just been too busy to write back, Theon said, comforting his longtime friend. Theon remembered the crying girl from years ago, her resentful gaze. The last promise they had made. If you miss her that much, why don't you find a chance to visit her? You've been at Ebesty for a while now. I'm sure they'll let you go. A light bulb went off in Ray's head. He excitedly dashed off to make preparations. In her room, Dorothea was about to bring up using real swords again when she was met with a furious Clara. You're finally back! Do you know how long ago lunchtime was? You can't do this every time. Look, Sir Stephen is hurt. Did you catch the sword with your hand? You have splinters, I'll help you get them out later. Without another word, she pushed Dorothea toward the bathroom while rattling off the day's news. Ever since Dorothea had cured the plague, someone had been leaving vegetables for her almost every day. Dorothea admired their persistence and wanted to find them to offer a meal, but they never gave her the chance. The problem was, the vegetables were often on the verge of rotting, which was a huge headache for the chef. After her bath, Clara handed Dorothea 2 letters from the capital. Dorothea knew they were from Ray but had no desire to read them. But then she saw the second one was addressed to Stephen and had a bad feeling. Stephen didn't look happy after reading his letter. When Dorothea learned it was about the knightly order's promotion exams, she knew it meant he would have to leave. If he became a high-ranking knight, his duty would be to protect the crown prince, not her. She took the letter and saw that if Stephen left, he would not be replaced. Dorothea felt a sense of resignation. It seemed her father, Garland, had completely abandoned her. Clara was shocked. Not wanting to worry her staff, she put on a brave face. Don't worry about my safety. I've learned a lot from you. It was an honor to know you. If you're not in a hurry to leave, let me throw you a farewell party tomorrow. The room fell silent. Stephen just stood there, speechless. Dorothea thought he was going to refuse and felt her spirits sink. Suddenly, Stephen knelt and took her hand. Your Highness, I will always be your guardian knight. Protecting you is my mission. Dorothea fought back tears. You're an idiot, Stephen. Why would you choose this over something so much better? Stephen smiled. I only do what I want to do. Dorothea looked at the man before her, the knight who had protected Ray to his dying breath in her past life. A foolish man then and a foolish man now. In this life, I'll be selfish just one more time. After all, I've always been a bad person. Thank you, you foolish Stephen. One day, Dorothea was at the market as usual, trying to do her one good deed for the day. She noticed the town was unusually lively. A crowd was gathered around the public notice board. Curious, she tried to get a closer look but couldn't squeeze through. Stephen, seeing her struggle, simply picked her up. Though embarrassed, she was able to read the notice. It was an announcement for an amateur swordsmanship tournament. Dorothea realized this was the perfect opportunity to test her skills. Take me to sign up, she told Stephen. At the registration table, the man in charge saw she was just a little girl and dismissively told her to come back in a few years. I meet all the requirements. Why can't I sign up? She retorted. The man's attitude soured. He insulted her, saying she had no manners and that her parents must be ashamed of her. The words cut deep, and Dorothea was about to take matters into her own hands. Then Stephen slammed his sword onto the table. An intimidating aura radiated from him as he stared the man down. "Follow the rules, or else—" The terrified official immediately handed over the registration form, and Dorothea was successfully signed up. She was grateful to Stephen. Without him, she would have broken her vow to be good. As they were about to leave, Dorothea saw a familiar figure. It was Ethan, struggling with a pile of gifts, being berated by a dark-haired man walking beside him. Ethan stumbled and fell, and the man started screaming insults at him. Ethan just kept his head down and mumbled, "I'm sorry." But the man wasn't finished. He slapped Ethan across the face several times. Just as he raised his hand again, a figure flashed past. Dorothea, unable to watch Ethan be abused any longer, stepped in and stopped him. With Stephen's help, she subdued the man. She then learned that the man was Duke Valenti's eldest son and Ethan's older brother. For the sake of the Duke's reputation, Dorothea only gave him a stern warning before pulling Ethan away. Ethan was still in shock, unable to believe that Dorothea had cared enough to defend him. The feeling of her hand holding his made him feel dizzy. But when they reached Stephen, she casually let go. Ethan looked down at his empty palm, disappointed. Wanting more of her attention, he tugged on her sleeve. He begged her to let him stay at her palace until his brother's anger had cooled. Dorothea looked at the handsome but pitiful boy and with a sigh agreed. A short while later, they arrived back at the palace. But the sight that greeted them made Dorothea's heart stop. It was Ray, whom she hadn't seen in years. Before she could react, Ray launched himself at her, hugging her tightly. But when she saw the person with him, she panicked even more. The one person she wanted to avoid was here. Theon politely greeted her, but she couldn't deal with him right now. She grabbed Ray and dragged him into her room. "Why are you here? And why did you bring Theon? Did you want to see how pathetically I'm living in this backwater place?" Ray quickly explained that he just missed her so much and wanted to surprise her, so he brought Theon along. Dorothea didn't want to hear it. "Did you ever ask me what I wanted? Did you ever consider my feelings? This isn't a surprise, it's a disaster. Take Theon and leave now." Ray looked incredibly hurt. "Do you know how much I missed you at the academy? I was so worried you were lonely here. So I kept writing you letters, but you never replied. I was worried, so I came to see you," he said, his voice thick with tears. Seeing Ray cry, Dorothea felt a pang of guilt. Have I become the villain again? Just as she was about to step outside for some air, she ran right into Theon. It seemed he had once again witnessed her at her worst. Dorothea berated herself. Why did Theon always have to see her when she was a complete mess? All she wanted was for him to see her good side. Was that really so much to ask?